And Odysseus answered, King Alcinous, it is a good thing to hear a bard with such a divine voice as this man has. There is nothing better or more delightful than when a whole people make merry together, with the guests sitting orderly to listen, while the table is loaded with bread and meats, and the cupbearer draws wine and fills his cup for every man. This is indeed as fair a sight as a man can see. It lies low on the horizon, farthest out towards sunset, while the other islands face the dawn. It is a rugged island, but it breeds brave men, and my eyes know none that they better love to look upon. The goddess Calypso kept me with her in her cave, and wanted me to marry her, as did also the cunning Aeolian goddess Circe. But they could neither of them persuade me, for there is nothing dearer to a man than his own country and his parents. And however splendid a home he may have in a foreign country, if it be far from father or mother, he does not care about it. I told my men we should leave at once, but they would not listen. So they stayed there drinking much wine and killing great numbers of sheep and oxen on the seashore. Meanwhile the Cicons cried out for help to other Cicons who lived inland. They came in greater numbers, stronger and more skilled in war, for they could fight, either from chariots or on foot as the occasion served. At dawn they came thick as leaves and summer blossom, and the gods turned against us, so that we were hard pressed. From there we sailed onward with sorrow in our hearts, but glad to have escaped death that we had lost our comrades. Nor did we leave till we had thrice invoked each one of the poor fellows who had perished by the hands of the Cicons. Then Zeus raised the north wind against us till it blew a hurricane, so that land and sky were hidden in thick clouds, and night sprang forth out of the sky. We let the ships run before the gale, but the force of the wind tore our sails to tatters, so we took them down for fear of shipwreck, and rowed our hardest towards the land. I was driven from there by foul winds for a space of 9 days upon the sea. But on the 10th day we reached the land of the lotus eaters, who live on a food that comes from a kind of flower. Here we landed to take in fresh water, and our crews got their midday meal on the shore near the ships. When they had eaten and drunk, I sent 2 of my company to see what kind of people the people of the place might be, and they had a 3rd man under them. We sailed from here, always in much distress, till we came to the land of the lawless and inhuman Cyclopes. Now the Cyclopes neither plant nor plough, but trust in providence, and live on such wheat, barley, and grapes as grow wild without any kind of tillage, and their wild grapes yield them wine as the sun and the rain may grow them. They have no laws nor assemblies of the people, but live in caves on the tops of high mountains. Each is lord and master in his family, and they take no account of their neighbours. Now off their harbour there lies a wooded and fertile island, not quite close to the land of the Cyclopes, but still not far. For the Cyclops have no ships, nor yet shipwrights who could make ships for them. They cannot so go from city to city, or sail over the sea to one another's country as people who have ships can do. If they had had these, they would have colonized the island, for it is a very good one, and would yield everything in due season. There are meadows that in some places come right down to the seashore, well watered and full of luscious grass. Grapes would do there excellently. There is level land for ploughing, and it would always yield heavily at harvest time, for the soil is deep. A thick mist hung all round our ships. The moon was hidden behind a mass of clouds, so that no one could have seen the island if he had looked for it, nor were there any breakers to tell us we were close inshore before we found ourselves upon the land itself. When, however, we had beached the ships, we took down the sails, went ashore, and camped upon the beach till daybreak. When the child of morning, rosy-fingered dawn appeared, we admired the island and wandered all over it, while the nymphs, Zeus's daughters, roused the wild goats that we might get some food for our dinner. We could almost fancy we heard their voices and the bleating of their sheep and goats. But when the sun went down and it came on dark, we camped down upon the beach, and next morning I called a council. "Stay here, my brave fellows," said I, "all the rest of you, while I go with my ship and exploit these people myself. I want to see if they are uncivilized savages or a hospitable and humane race." I went on board, bidding my men to do so also, and loose the hawsers. So they took their places and smote the grey sea with their oars. He was a horrid creature, not like a human being at all, but resembling rather some crag that stands out boldly against the sky on the top of a high mountain. I told my men to draw the ship ashore and stay where they were, all but the 12 best among them, who were to go along with myself. I also took a goat skin of sweet black wine which had been given me by Maron, son of Euanthes, who was priest of Apollo, the patron god of Ismarus, and lived within the wooded precincts of the temple. When we were sacking the city, we respected him and spared his life, as also his wife and child. I filled a large skin with this wine, and took a wallet full of provisions with me, for my mind misgave me that I might have to deal with some savage who would be of great strength, and would respect neither right nor law. We soon reached his cave, but he was out shepherding, so we went inside and took stock of all that we could see. His cheese racks were loaded with cheeses, and he had more lambs and kids than his pins could hold. They were kept in separate flocks. First there were the hoggets, then the oldest of the younger lambs, and lastly the very young ones, all kept apart from one another. When, however, we saw him, my poor men found him ill to deal with. We lit a fire, offered some of the cheeses in sacrifice, ate others of them, and then sat waiting till the Cyclops should come in with his sheep. When he came, he brought in with him a huge load of dry firewood to light the fire for his supper, and this he flung with such a noise onto the floor of his cave that we hid ourselves for fear at the far end of the cavern. Meanwhile, he drove all the ewes inside, as well as the she-goats that he was going to milk, leaving the males, both rams and he-goats, outside in the yards. When he had got through with all his work, he lit the fire, and then caught sight of us. And then he said, "Strangers, who are you? Where do you sail from? Are you traders, or do you sail the sea as rovers, with your hands against every man, and every man's hand against you?" We were frightened out of our senses by his loud voice and monstrous form, but I managed to say, "We are Greeks, on our way home from Troy, but by the will of Zeus and stress of weather, we have been driven far out of our course." Talk to me indeed about fearing the gods, or shunning their anger. We Cyclopes do not care about Zeus, or any of your blessed gods, for we are ever so much stronger than they. I shall not spare either yourself or your companions out of any regard for Zeus, unless I am in the humor for doing so. And now, tell me where you made your ship fast when you came on shore. Was it round the point, or is she lying straight off the land?" He said this to draw me out, but I was too cunning to be caught in that way, so I answered with a lie. Then he tore them limb from limb and supped upon them. He gobbled them up like a lion in the wilderness, flesh, bones, marrow, and entrails, without leaving anything uneaten. As for us, we wept and lifted up our hands to the sky on seeing such a horrid sight, for we did not know what else to do. But when the Cyclops had filled his huge paunch and had washed down his meal of human flesh with a drink of neat milk, he stretched himself full length upon the ground among his sheep and went to sleep. Soon, with the utmost ease, he rolled the stone away from the door and drove out his sheep. But he at once put it back again, as easily as though he were merely clapping the lid on to a quiver full of arrows. As soon as he had done so, he shouted and cried, "Shoo! Shoo!" after his sheep to drive them on to the mountain. So I was left to scheme some way of taking my revenge and covering myself with glory. In the end, I deemed it would be the best plan to do as follows. The Cyclops had a great club which was lying near one of the sheep pens. When I had done this, I hid it under dung which was lying about all over the cave, and told the men to cast lots which of them should venture along with myself to lift it and bore it into the monster's eye while he was asleep. The lot fell upon the very 4 whom I should have chosen, and I myself made 5. In the evening the wretch came back from shepherding, and drove his flocks into the cave, this time driving them all inside, and not leaving any in the yards. I suppose some fancy must have taken him, or a god must have prompted him to do so. So I went up to him with an ivy-wood bowl of black wine in my hands. "Look here, Cyclops," said I. "You have been eating a great deal of man's flesh, so take this and drink some wine, that you may see what kind of liquor we had on board my ship. I was bringing it to you as a drink offering, in the hope that you would take compassion upon me and further me on my way home, whereas all you do is to go on ramping and raving most intolerably. You ought to be ashamed of yourself. How can you expect people to come see you any more if you treat them in this way?" He then took the cup and drank. We have wine even in this country, for our soil grows grapes and the sun ripens them. But this drinks like nectar and ambrosia all in one. I then gave him some more. 3 times did I fill the bowl for him, and 3 times did he drain it without thought or heed. Then, when I saw that the wine had got into his head, I said to him as plausibly as I could, "Cyclops, you ask my name, and I will tell it you. Give me so the present you promised me. My name is No Man." We drove the sharp end of the beam into the monster's eye, and bearing upon it with all my weight, I kept turning it round and round as though I were boring a hole in a ship's plank with an auger, which 2 men with a wheel and strap can keep on turning as long as they choose. Even thus did we bore the red-hot beam into his eye, till the boiling blood bubbled all over it as we worked it round and round, so that the steam from the burning eyeballs scalded his eyelids and eyebrows, and the roots of the eye sputtered in the fire. As a blacksmith plunges an axe or hatchet into cold water to temper it. "What ails you, Polyphemus?" said they, "that you make such a noise, breaking the stillness of the night, and preventing us from being able to sleep? Surely no man is carrying off your sheep. Surely no man is trying to kill you, either by fraud or by force." But Polyphemus shouted to them from inside the cave, "No man is killing me by fraud. No man is killing me by force." Then, said they. "If no man is attacking you, you must be ill." As for myself, I kept on puzzling to think how I could best save my own life and those of my companions. I schemed and schemed, as one who knows that his life depends upon it, for the danger was very great. In the end, I deemed that this plan would be the best. The male sheep were well grown and carried a heavy black fleece, so I bound them noiselessly in threes together, with some of the withies on which the wicked monster used to sleep. There was to be a man under the middle sheep, and the two on either side were to cover him, so that there were 3 sheep to each man. As the ram was going out, last of all, heavy with its fleece and with the weight of my crafty self, Polyphemus laid hold of it and said, "My good ram, what is it that makes you the last to leave my cave this morning? You are not wont to let the ewes go before you, but lead the mob with a run, whether to flowery mead or bubbling fountain, and are the first to come home again at night. But now you lag last of all. Is it because you know your master has lost his eye, and are sorry because that wicked no-man and his horrid crew has got him down in his drink and blinded him? I should thus have some satisfaction for the harm this no-good no-man has done me." As he spoke, he drove the ram outside, but when we were a little way out from the cave and yards, I first got from under the ram's belly, and then freed my comrades. As for the sheep, which were very fat, by constantly heading them in the right direction, we managed to drive them down to the ship. The crew rejoiced greatly at seeing those of us who had escaped death, but wept for the others whom the Cyclops had killed. "You might have known that your sin would find you out, and now Zeus and the other gods have punished you." He got more and more furious as he heard me, so he tore the top from off a high mountain and flung it just in front of my ship, so that it was within a little of hitting the end of the rudder. The sea quaked as the rock fell into it, and the wash of the wave it raised carried us back towards the mainland and forced us towards the shore. There was a prophet here at one time, a man both brave and of great stature, Telemus, son of Eurymachus, who was an excellent seer and did all the prophesying for the Cyclopes till he grew old. He told me that all this would happen to me some day, and said I should lose my sight by the hand of Odysseus. I have been all along expecting someone of imposing presence and superhuman strength, whereas he turns out to be a little insignificant weakling who has managed to blind my eye by taking advantage of me in my drink. He, if he so will, shall heal me, which no one else, neither god nor man, can do. Then I said, I wish I could be as sure of killing you outright and sending you down to the house of Hades, as I am that it will take more than Poseidon to cure that eye of yours. On this, he lifted up his hands to the firmament of the sky and prayed, saying, Hear me, great Poseidon. If I am indeed your own true begotten son, grant that Odysseus may never reach his home alive. When at last we got to the island where we had left the rest of our ships, we found our comrades lamenting us and anxiously awaiting our return. We ran our vessel upon the sands and got out of her onto the seashore. We also landed the Cyclops sheep and divided them equitably amongst us, so that none might have reason to complain. As for the ram, my companions agreed that I should have it as an extra share. So I sacrificed it on the seashore and burned its thigh bones to Zeus, who is the Lord of all. But he heeded not my sacrifice, and only thought how he might destroy both my ships and my comrades. From there we went on to the Aeolian island, where lives Aeolus, son of Hippotas, dear to the immortal gods. It is an island that floats, as it were, upon the sea, iron-bound with a wall that girds it. Now Aeolus has 6 daughters and 6 lusty sons, so he made the sons marry the daughters, and they all live with their dear father and mother, feasting and enjoying every conceivable kind of luxury. All day long the atmosphere of the house is loaded with the savour of roasting meats, till it groans again, yard and all. But by night they sleep on their well-made bedsteads, each with his own wife between the blankets. Moreover, he flayed me a prime ox-hide to hold the ways of the roaring winds, which he shut up in the hide as in a sack. For Zeus had made him captain over the winds, and he could stir or still each one of them according to his own pleasure. He put the sack in the ship, and bound the mouth so tightly with a silver thread that not even a breath of a side wind could blow from any quarter. The west wind, which was fair for us, did he alone let blow as it chose. But it all came to nothing, for we were lost through our own folly. See what fine prizes he is taking home from Troy, while we, who have travelled just as far as he has, come back with hands as empty as we set out with. And now Aeolus has given him ever so much more. Quick, let us see what it all is, and how much gold and silver there is in the sack he gave him. Thus they talked, and evil counsels prevailed. They loosed the sack, whereupon the wind flew howling forth, and raised a storm that carried us weeping out to sea, and away from our own country. Then I awoke, and knew not whether to throw myself into the sea, or to live on and make the best of it. They were astounded when they saw us, and said, "Odysseus, what brings you here? What god has been ill-treating you? We took great pains to further you on your way home to Ithaca, or wherever it was that you wanted to go to." Thus did they speak, but I answered sorrowfully, "My men have undone me. They and cruel sleep have ruined me. My friends, mend me this mischief, for you can if you will." I spoke as movingly as I could, but they said nothing, till their father answered, "Vilest of mankind, get you gone at once out of the island. Him whom the sky hates will I in no wise help." In that country, a man who could do without sleep might earn double wages, one as a herdsman of cattle, and another as a shepherd, for they work much the same by night as they do by day. When we reached the harbour, we found it landlocked under steep cliffs, with a narrow entrance between 2 headlands. My captains took all their ships inside, and made them fast close to one another, for there was never so much as a breath of wind inside, but it was always dead calm. I kept my own ship outside, and moored it to a rock at the very end of the point. She was going to the fountain Artacia, from which the people bring in their water. And when my men had come close up to her, they asked her who the king of that country might be, and over what kind of people he ruled. So she directed them to her father's house, but when they got there, they found his wife to be a giantess, as huge as a mountain, and they were horrified at the sight of her. She at once called her husband Antiphates from the place of assembly, and at once he set about killing my men. While they were thus killing my men within the harbour, I drew my sword, cut the cable of my own ship, and told my men to row with all their might, if they too would not fare like the rest. So they laid out for their lives, and we were thankful enough when we got into open water, out of reach of the rocks they hurled at us. As for the others, there was not one of them left. When the morning of the third day came, I took my spear and my sword, and went away from the ship to reconnoitre, and see if I could discover signs of human handiwork, or hear the sound of voices. Climbing to the top of a high lookout, I espied the smoke of Circe's house rising upwards amid a dense forest of trees. And when I saw this, I doubted whether, having seen the smoke, I would not go on at once and find out more. But in the end I deemed it best to go back to the ship, give the men their dinners, and send some of them instead of going myself. Then I set my foot upon him, drew my spear from the wound, and laid it down. I also gathered rough grass and rushes and twisted them into a fathom or so of good stout rope, with which I bound the 4 feet of the noble creature together. Having so done, I hung him round my neck and walked back to the ship, leaning upon my spear. For the stag was much too big for me to be able to carry him on my shoulder, steadying him with one hand. When the child of morning, rosy-fingered dawn, appeared, I called a council and said, "My friends, we are in very great difficulties. Listen so to me. We have no idea where the sun either sets or rises, so that we do not even know east from west. I see no way out of it. Even so, we must try and find one. We are certainly on an island, for I went as high as I could this morning and saw the sea reaching all round it to the horizon." When they reached Circe's house, they found it built of cut stones, on a site that could be seen from far, in the middle of the forest. There were wild mountain wolves and lions prowling all round it, poor bewitched creatures whom she had tamed by her enchantments and drugged into subjection. They did not attack my men, but wagged their great tails, fawned upon them, and rubbed their noses lovingly against them. As hounds crowd round their master when they see him coming from dinner, for they know he will bring them something, even so did these wolves and lions with their great claws fawn upon my men. But the men were terribly frightened at seeing such strange creatures. On this Polites, whom I valued and trusted more than any other of my men, said, "There is someone inside working at a loom and singing most beautifully. The whole place resounds with it. Let us call her and see whether she is woman or goddess." They called her, and she came down, unfastened the door, and told them enter. They, thinking no evil, followed her, all except Eurylochus, who suspected mischief and stayed outside. "We went," said he, "as you told us, through the forest, and in the middle of it there was a fine house built with cut stones, in a place that could be seen from far. There we found a woman, or else she was a goddess, working at her loom and singing sweetly. So the men shouted to her and called her, and then she at once came down, opened the door, and invited us in. The others did not suspect any mischief, so they followed her into the house. But I stayed where I was, for I thought there might be some treachery. But he laid hold of me with both his hands, and spoke piteously, saying, 'Sir, do not force me to go with you, but let me stay here, for I know you will not bring one of them back with you, nor even return alive yourself. Let us rather see if we cannot escape at any rate with the few that are left us, for we may still save our lives.' 'Stay where you are then,' answered I, 'eating and drinking at the ship, but I must go, for I am most urgently bound to do so.' With this, I left the ship and went up inland. But never mind. I will protect you and get you out of your difficulty. Take this herb, which is one of great virtue, and keep it about you when you go to Circe's house. It will be a talisman to you against every kind of mischief. And I will tell you of all the wicked witchcraft that Circe will try to practice upon you. She will mix a mess for you to drink, and she will drug the meal with which she makes it. But she will not be able to charm you, for the virtue of the herb that I shall give you will prevent her spells from working. I will tell you all about it. The root was black, while the flower was as white as milk. The gods call it moly, and mortal men cannot uproot it. But the gods can do whatever they like. Then Hermes went back to high Olympus, passing over the wooded island. But I fared onward to the house of Circe, and my heart was clouded with care as I walked along. When I got to the gates, I stood there and called the goddess, and as soon as she heard me, she came down, opened the door, and asked me to come in. So I followed her, much troubled in my mind. When she had given it me, and I had drunk it without its charming me, she struck me with her wand. "There now," she cried, "be off to the pigsty, and make your lair with the rest of them." But I rushed at her with my sword drawn as though I would kill her, and then she fell with a loud scream, clasped my knees, and spoke piteously, saying, "Who and whence are you? From what place and people have you come? How can it be that my drugs have no power to charm you? Never yet was any man able to stand so much as a taste of the herb I gave you. You must be spell-proof. I shall certainly not consent to go to bed with you, unless you will first take your solemn oath to plot no further harm against me." So she swore at once as I had told her, and when she had completed her oath, then I went to bed with her. Meanwhile, her 4 servants, who are her housemaids, set about their work. They are the children of the groves and fountains, and of the holy waters that run down into the sea. One of them spread a fair purple cloth over a seat, and laid a carpet underneath it. Another brought tables of silver up to the seats, and set them with baskets of gold. As soon as she had done washing me, and anointing me with oil, she arrayed me in a good cloak and shirt, and led me to a richly decorated seat, inlaid with silver. There was a footstool also under my feet. A servant woman then brought me water in a beautiful golden jug, and poured it into a silver basin for me to wash my hands, and she drew a clean table beside me. An upper servant brought me bread, and offered me many things of what there was in the house. And then Circe told me, "Eat," but I would not, and sat without heeding what was before me, still moody and suspicious. "If you want me to eat and drink, you must free my men and bring them to me, that I may see them with my own eyes." When I had said this, she went straight through the court with her wand in her hand and opened the pigsty doors. My men came out like so many prime hogs and stood looking at her. But she went about among them and anointed each with a second drug. And then the bristles that the bad drug had given them fell off, and they became men again, younger than they were before, and much taller and better looking. "Then hide all your ship's gear and property in some cave, and come back here with your men." I agreed to this, so I went back to the seashore and found the men at the ship weeping and wailing most piteously. When they saw me, the silly blubbering fellows began frisking round me, as calves break out and gambol round their mothers, when they see them coming home to be milked, after they have been feeding all day, and the homestead resounds with their lowing. "Rush not on your ruin by going to the house of Circe. who will turn us all into pigs or wolves or lions, and we shall have to keep guard over her house. Remember how the Cyclops treated us when our comrades went inside his cave, and Odysseus with them. It was all through his recklessness that those men lost their lives. When I heard him, I was in two minds whether or no to draw the keen blade that hung by my sturdy thigh and cut his head off, in spite of his being a near relation of my own. Meanwhile, Circe had been seeing that the men who had been left behind were washed and anointed with olive oil. She had also given them woolen cloaks and shirts, and when we came, we found them all comfortably at dinner in her house. As soon as the men saw each other face to face and knew one another, they wept for joy and cried aloud till the whole palace rang again. Then Circe came up to me and said, "Odysseus, noble son of Laertes, tell your men to leave off crying." But when the year had passed, in the waning of moons, and the long days had come round, my men called me apart and said, "Sir, it is time you began to think about going home, if so be you are to be spared to see your house and native country at all." Thus did they speak, and I assented. Then, through the livelong day to the going down of the sun, we feasted our fill on food and wine. But when the sun went down and it came on dark, the men laid themselves down to sleep in the covered cloisters. "You must go to the house of Hades and of dread Proserpine to consult the ghost of the blind Theban prophet Tiresias, whose reason is still unshaken. To him alone has Proserpine left his understanding even in death, but the other ghosts flit about aimlessly." I was dismayed when I heard this. I sat up in bed and wept, and would gladly have lived no longer to see the light of the sun. But soon, when I was tired of weeping and tossing myself about, I said, "And who shall guide me upon this voyage? For the house of Hades is a port that no ship can reach." "You will want no guide," she answered. "When you have reached this spot, as I now tell you, dig a trench, a cubit or so in length, breadth, and depth, and pour into it as a drink offering to all the dead first honey mixed with milk, then wine, and in the third place water, sprinkling white barley meal over the whole. Moreover, you must offer many prayers to the poor, feeble ghosts, and promise them that when you get back to Ithaca, you will sacrifice a barren heifer to them, the best you have, and will load the pyre with food set before them. More particularly, you must promise that Tiresias shall have a black sheep all to himself, the finest in all your flocks. Then draw your sword and sit there, so as to prevent any other poor ghost from coming near the spilt blood before Tiresias shall have answered your questions. The seer will soon come to you, and will tell you about your voyage, what stages you are to make, and how you are to sail the sea so as to reach your home." It was daybreak by the time she had done speaking, so she dressed me in my shirt and cloak. As for herself, she threw a beautiful light gossamer fabric over her shoulders, fastening it with a golden girdle round her waist, and she covered her head with a mantle. We had with us a certain youth named Elpenor, not very remarkable for sense or courage, who had got drunk and was lying on the housetop away from the rest of the men to sleep off his liquor in the cool. When he heard the noise of the men bustling about, he jumped up on a sudden and forgot all about coming down by the main staircase, so he tumbled right off the roof and broke his neck, and his soul went down to the house of Hades. Then, when we had got down to the seashore, we drew our ship into the water and got her mast and sails into her. We also put the sheep on board and took our places, weeping and in great distress of mind. Circe, that great and cunning goddess, sent us a fair wind that blew dead aft and stayed steadily with us, keeping our sails all the time well filled. So we did whatever wanted doing to the ship's gear, and let her go as the wind and helmsman headed her. When we got there, we beached the ship, took the sheep out of her, and went along by the waters of Oceanus, till we came to the place of which Circe had told us. Here Paramedes and Eurylochus held the victims, while I drew my sword and dug the trench a cubit each way. I made a drink offering to all the dead, first with honey and milk, then with wine, and thirdly with water. And I sprinkled white barley meal over the whole, praying earnestly to the poor, feckless ghosts, and promising them that when I got back to Ithaca, I would sacrifice a barren heifer for them, the best I had, and would load the pyre with food set before them. When I saw them coming, I told the men to be quick, and flay the carcasses of the 2 dead sheep, and make burnt offerings of them, and at the same time to repeat prayers to Hades and to Proserpine. But I sat where I was, with my sword drawn, and would not let the poor feckless ghosts come near the blood, till Tiresias should have answered my questions. The first ghost that came was that of my comrade Elpenor, for he had not yet been laid beneath the earth. We had left his body unwaked and unburied in Circe's house, for we had had too much else to do. I was lying asleep on the top of Circe's house, and never thought of coming down again by the great staircase, but fell right off the roof and broke my neck. So my soul came down to the house of Hades. And now I beseech you, by all those whom you have left behind you, though they are not here, by your wife, by the father who brought you up when you were a child, and by Telemachus, who is the one hope of your house, do what I shall now ask you. I know that when you leave this limbo, you will again hold your ship for the Aeolian island. Then came the ghost of my dead mother Anticlea, daughter to Autolycus. I had left her alive when I set out for Troy, and was moved to tears when I saw her. But even so, for all my sorrow, I would not let her come near the blood till I had asked my questions of Tiresias. Then came also the ghost of Theban Tiresias, with his golden sceptre in his hand. He knew me and said, "Odysseus, noble son of Laertes, why alone have you left the light of day and come down to visit the dead in this sad place?" "You want to know," said he, "about your return home, but the sky will make this hard for you. I do not think that you will escape the eye of Poseidon, who still nurses his bitter grudge against you for having blinded his son. Still, after much suffering, you may get home if you can restrain yourself and your companions when your ship reaches the Thrinacian island, where you will find the sheep and cattle belonging to the sun, who sees and gives ear to everything. If you leave these flocks unharmed and think of nothing but of getting home, you may yet, after much hardship, reach Ithaca. When you get home, you will take your revenge on these suitors, and after you have killed them by force or fraud in your own house, you must take a well-made oar and carry it on and on till you come to a country where the people have never heard of the sea, and do not even mix salt with their food, nor do they know anything about ships, and oars that are as the wings of a ship. I will give you this certain token which cannot escape your notice. A wayfarer will meet you, and will say it must be a winnowing shovel that you have got upon your shoulder. all that I have said will come true." "This," I answered, "must be as it may please the sky. But tell me, and tell me, and tell me truly. I see my poor mother's ghost close by us. She is sitting by the blood without saying a word, and though I am her own son, she does not remember me and speak to me. Tell me, sir, how I can make her know me." "That," said he, "I can soon do. It is a hard thing for the living to see these places, for between us and them there are great and terrible waters. And there is Oceanus, which no man can cross on foot, but he must have a good ship to take him. Are you all this time trying to find your way home from Troy? And have you never yet got back to Ithaca, nor seen your wife in your own house?" "Mother," said I was forced to come here to consult the ghost of the Theban prophet Tiresias. Tell me again what my wife intends doing, and in what mind she is. Does she live with my son and guard my estate securely? Or has she made the best match she could, and married again?" My mother answered, "Your wife still remains in your house, but she is in great distress of mind and spends her whole time in tears both night and day. No one as yet has got possession of your fine property, and Telemachus still holds your lands undisturbed. He has to entertain largely, as of course he must, considering his position as a magistrate, and how everyone invites him. Your father remains at his old place in the country, and never goes near the town. He grieves continually about your never having come home, and suffers more and more as he grows older. As for my own end, it was in this wise. The sky did not take me swiftly and painlessly in my own house, nor was I attacked by any illness, such as those that generally wear people out and kill them. But my longing to know what you were doing, and the force of my affection for you. This it was that was the death of me. Then I tried to find some way of embracing my poor mother's ghost. The sinews no longer hold the flesh and bones together. These perish in the fierceness of consuming fire as soon as life has left the body, and the soul flits away as though it were a dream. Now, however, go back to the light of day as soon as you can, and note all these things, that you may tell them to your wife hereafter." Thus did we converse, and soon Proserpine sent up the ghosts of the wives and daughters of all the most famous men. They gathered in crowds about the blood, and I considered how I might question them severally. The first I saw was Tyro. She was daughter of Salmoneus and wife of Cretheus, the son of Aeolus. She fell in love with the river Enipeus, who is much the most beautiful river in the whole world. Once, when she was taking a walk by his side as usual, Poseidon, disguised as her lover, lay with her at the mouth of the river, and a huge blue wave arched itself like a mountain over them to hide both woman and god. And then he loosed her virgin girdle and laid her in a deep slumber. When the god had accomplished the deed of love, he took her hand in his own and said, "Tyro, rejoice in good faith. Peleus was a great breeder of sheep, and lived in Iolcus, but the other lived in Pylos. The rest of her children were by Cretheus, namely Aeson, Pheres, and Amatheon, who was a mighty warrior and charioteer. Next to her I saw Antiope, daughter to Asopus, who could boast of having slept in the arms of even Zeus himself, and who bore him 2 sons, Amphion and Zethus. These founded Thebes with its 7 gates, and built a wall all round it. For strong though they were, they could not hold Thebes till they had walled it. Then I saw Alcmena, the wife of Amphitryon, who also bore to Zeus indomitable Heracles. Then I saw Chloris, whom Neleus married for her beauty, having given priceless presents for her. She was youngest daughter to Amphion, son of Iasus, and king of Minion Orchomenus, and was queen in Pylos. She bore Nestor, Chromius, and Periclymenus, and she also bore that marvellously lovely woman Pero, who was wooed by all the country round. But Neleus would only give her to him who should raid the cattle of Iphicles from the grazing grounds of Phylace, and this was a hard task. The only man who would undertake to raid them was a certain excellent seer, but the will of the sky was against him, for the rangers of the cattle caught him and put him in prison. And I saw Leda, the wife of Tyndarus, who bore him 2 famous sons, Castor, breaker of horses, and Pollux, the mighty boxer. Both these heroes are lying under the earth, though they are still alive, for by a special dispensation of Zeus, they die and come to life again, each one of them every other day throughout all time, and they have the rank of gods. After her I saw Iphimedeia, wife of Aloeus, who boasted the embrace of Poseidon. She bore 2 sons, Otus and Ephialtes, but both were short-lived. They were the finest children that were ever born in this world, and the best-looking, Orion only excepted. Then I saw Phaedra, and Procris, and fair Ariadne, daughter of the magician Minos, whom Theseus was carrying off from Crete to Athens, but he did not enjoy her, for before he could do so, Artemis killed her in the island of Dia on account of what Dionysus had said against her. I also saw Mera and Clymene, and hateful Eriphyle, who sold her own husband for gold. But it would take me all night if I were to name every single one of the wives and daughters of heroes whom I saw. And it is time for me to go to bed, either on board ship with my crew or here. Do not be in a hurry to send him away, nor niggardly in the presents you make to one who is in such great need. For Sky has blessed all of you with great abundance. Then spoke the aged hero Echenius, who was one of the oldest men among them. My friends, said he, what our august queen has just said to us is both reasonable and to the purpose, so be persuaded by it. But the decision, whether in word or deed, rests ultimately with King Alcinous. The thing shall be done, exclaimed Alcinous, as surely as I still live and reign over the Phaeacians. As regards his escort, it will be a matter for you all, and mine above all others as the chief person among you. And Odysseus answered, King Alcinous, if you were to bid me to stay here for a whole 12 months, and then speed me on my way, loaded with your noble gifts, I should obey you gladly, and it would redound greatly to my advantage. For I should return fuller-handed to my own people, and should thus be more respected and beloved by all who see me when I get back to Ithaca. Odysseus, replied Alcinous, not one of us who sees you has any idea that you are a charlatan or a swindler. The evenings are still at their longest, and it is not yet bedtime. Go on, so, with your divine story, for I could stay here listening till tomorrow morning, so long as you will continue to tell us of your adventures. Alcinous, answered Odysseus, there is a time for making speeches, and a time for going to bed. Even so, since you so desire, I will not refrain from telling you the still sadder tale of those of my comrades who did not fall fighting with the Trojans, but perished on their return through the treachery of a wicked woman. Did Poseidon raise his winds and waves against you when you were at sea? Or did your enemies make an end of you on the mainland when you were cattle lifting or sheep stealing, or while they were fighting in defence of their wives and city? Odysseus, he answered, noble son of Laertes, I was not lost at sea in any storm of Poseidon's raising, nor did my foes dispatch me upon the mainland. But Aegisthus and my wicked wife were the death of me between them. I lay dying upon the earth with a sword in my body, and raised my hands to kill the slut of a murderess, but she slipped away from me. She would not even close my lips nor my eyes when I was dying. For there is nothing in this world so cruel and so shameless as a woman when she has fallen into such guilt as hers was. Fancy murdering her own husband! I thought I was going to be welcomed home by my children and my servants, but her abominable crime has brought disgrace on herself and all women who shall come after. We left her a young bride with an infant at her breast when we set out for Troy. This child, no doubt, is now grown up happily to man's estate, and he and his father will have a joyful meeting, and embrace one another as it is right they should do. Whereas my wicked wife did not even allow me the happiness of looking upon my son, but killed me before I could do so. Furthermore, I say, and lay my saying to your heart, do not tell people when you are bringing your ship to Ithaca, but steal a march upon them, for after all this there is no trusting women. I do not know whether your son is alive or dead, and it is not right to talk when one does not know. As we two sat weeping and talking thus sadly with one another, the ghost of Achilles came up to us, with Patroclus, Antilochus, and Ajax, who was the finest and goodliest man of all the Greeks after the son of Peleus. Do not so take it so much to heart, even if you are dead. Say not a word, he answered, in death's favour. I would rather be a paid servant in a lone's house and be above ground, than king of kings among the dead. But give me news about my son. Is he gone to the wars, and will he be a great soldier, or is this not so? Tell me also if you have heard anything about my father Peleus. Does he still rule among the Myrmidons, or do they show him no respect throughout Hellas and Phthia, now that he is old and his limbs fail him? In our councils of war before Troy, he was always first to speak, and his judgment was unerring. Nestor and I were the only two who could surpass him. And when it came to fighting on the plain of Troy, he would never remain with the body of his men, but would dash on far in front, foremost of them all in valour. Many a man did he kill in battle. I cannot name every single one of those whom he slew while fighting on the side of the Greeks, but will only say how he killed that valiant hero Eurypylus, son of Telephus, who was the handsomest man I ever saw, except Memnon. Moreover, when all the bravest of the Greeks went inside the horse that Epeius had made, and it was left to me to settle when we should either open the door of our ambuscade or close it, though all the other leaders and chief men among the Greeks were drying their eyes and quaking in every limb, I never once saw him turn pale, nor wipe a tear from his cheek. He was all the time urging me to break out from the horse, grasping the handle of his sword and his bronze-shod spear, and breathing fury against the foe. Thetis had offered it as a prize, but the Trojan prisoners and Athena were the judges. Would that I had never gained the day in such a contest, for it cost the life of Ajax, who was foremost of all the Greeks after the son of Peleus, alike in stature and prowess. When I saw him, I tried to pacify him and said, "Ajax, will you not forget and forgive even in death? But must the judgment about that hateful armour still rankle with you? It cost us Greeks dear enough to lose such a tower of strength as you were to us." Then I saw Minos, son of Zeus, with his golden sceptre in his hand, sitting in judgment on the dead, and the ghosts were gathered sitting and standing round him in the spacious house of Hades, to learn his sentences upon them. After him I saw huge Orion, in a meadow full of asphodel, driving the ghosts of the wild beasts that he had killed upon the mountains, and he had a great bronze club in his hand, unbreakable for ever and ever. And I saw Tityus, son of Gaia, stretched upon the plain, and covering some 9 acres of ground. I saw also the dreadful fate of Tantalus, who stood in a lake that reached his chin. He was dying to quench his thirst, but could never reach the water. For whenever the poor creature stooped to drink, it dried up and vanished, so that there was nothing but dry ground, parched by the spite of the sky. There were tall trees, moreover, that shed their fruit over his head, pears, pomegranates, apples, sweet figs and juicy olives. But whenever the poor creature stretched out his hand to take some, the wind tossed the branches back again to the clouds. And I saw Sisyphus at his endless task, raising his prodigious stone with both his hands. After him I saw mighty Heracles, but it was his phantom only, for he is feasting ever with the immortal gods, and has lovely Hebe to wife, who is daughter of Zeus and Hera. The ghosts were screaming round him like scared birds flying all whithers. He looked black as night, with his bare bow in his hands, and his arrow on the string, glaring around as though ever on the point of taking aim. About his breast there was a wondrous golden belt, adorned in the most marvelous fashion, with bears, wild boars, and lions with gleaming eyes. There was also war, battle, and death. The man who made that belt, though he struggled, would never be able to make another like it. He once sent me here to fetch the hellhound, for he did not think he could find anything harder for me than this. But I got the hound out of Hades and brought him to him, for Hermes and Athena helped me. On this Heracles went down again into the house of Hades, but I stayed where I was in case some other of the mighty dead should come to me. And I should have seen still other of them that are gone before, whom I would fain have seen, Theseus and Pirithous. After we were clear of the river Oceanus, and had got out into the open sea, we went on till we reached the Aeolian island, where there is dawn and sunrise as in other places. We then drew our ship onto the sands, and got out of her onto the shore, where we went to sleep, and waited till day should break. Then, when the child of morning, rosy-fingered dawn, appeared, I sent some men to Circe's house to fetch the body of Elpenor. We cut firewood from a wood where the headland jutted out into the sea, and, after we had wept over him and lamented him, we performed his funeral rites. Then she stood in the midst of us and said, "You have done a bold thing in going down alive to the house of Hades, and you will have died twice, to other people's once. Now, then, stay here for the rest of the day, feast your fill, and go on with your voyage at daybreak tomorrow morning. In the meantime, I will tell Odysseus about your course, and will explain everything to him, so as to prevent your suffering from misadventure either by land or sea." We agreed to do as she had said, and feasted through the livelong day to the going down of the sun. But when the sun had set and it came on dark, the men laid themselves down to sleep by the stern cables of the ship. If anyone unwarily draws in too close and hears the singing of the Sirens, his wife and children will never welcome him home again. For they sit in a green field and warble him to death with the sweetness of their song. There is a great heap of dead men's bones lying all around, with the flesh still rotting off them. So pass these Sirens by, and stop your men's ears with wax, that none of them may hear. Here not even a bird may pass, no, not even the timid doves that bring ambrosia to Father Zeus. But the sheer rock always carries off one of them, and Father Zeus has to send another to make up their number. No ship that ever yet came to these rocks has got away again, but the waves and whirlwinds of fire are freighted with wreckage and with the bodies of dead men. The only vessel that ever sailed and got through was the famous Argo, on her way from the house of Aeetes, and she too would have gone against these great rocks, only that Hera piloted her past them for the love she bore to Jason. Inside it Scylla sits, and yelps with a voice that you might take to be that of a young hound. But in truth she is a dreadful monster, and no one, not even a god, could face her without being terror-struck. She has 12 misshapen feet, and 6 necks of the most prodigious length. And at the end of each neck she has a frightful head, with 3 rows of teeth in each, all set very close together, so that they would crunch anyone to death in a moment. And she sits deep within her shady cell, thrusting out her heads and peering all round the rock, fishing for dolphins or dogfish, or any larger monster that she can catch, of the thousands with which Amphitrite teems. 3 times in the day does she vomit forth her waters, and 3 times she sucks them down again. See that you be not there when she is sucking, for if you are, Poseidon himself could not save you. You must hug the Scylla side and drive ship by as fast as you can, for you had better lose 6 men than your whole crew. Is there no way, said I, of escaping Charybdis, and at the same time keeping Scylla off when she is trying to harm my men? You daredevil, replied the goddess. You are always wanting to fight somebody or something. You will not let yourself be beaten even by the immortals. For Scylla is not mortal. They do not breed, nor do they become fewer in number, and they are tended by the goddesses Phaethusa and Lampetie, who were children of the sun god Hyperion by Neaera. Their mother, when she had borne them and had done suckling them, sent them to the Thrinacian island, which was a long way off, to live there and look after their father's flocks and herds. If you leave these flocks unharmed and think of nothing but getting home, you may yet, after much hardship, reach Ithaca. But if you harm them, then I forewarn you of the destruction both of your ship and of your comrades. I then went on board and told my men to loose the ship from her moorings. So they at once got into her, took their places, and began to smite the grey sea with their oars. Soon the great and cunning goddess Circe befriended us with a fair wind that blew dead aft, and stayed steadily with us, keeping our sails well filled, so we did whatever wanted doing to the ship's gear, and let her go as wind and helmsman headed her. If I beg and pray you to set me free, then bind me more tightly still. I had hardly finished telling everything to the men before we reached the island of the 2 Sirens, for the wind had been very favourable. Then all of a sudden, it fell dead calm. There was not a breath of wind, nor a ripple upon the water, so the men furled the sails and stowed them. Then, taking to their oars, they whitened the water with the foam they raised in rowing. Meanwhile, I looked a large wheel of wax and cut it up small with my sword. No one ever sailed past us without staying to hear the enchanting sweetness of our song. And he who listens will go on his way, not only charmed, but wiser. For we know all the ills that the gods laid upon the Greeks and Trojans before Troy, and can tell you everything that is going to happen over the whole world. They sang these words most musically, and as I longed to hear them further, I made signs by frowning to my men that they should set me free. But they quickened their stroke, and Eurylochus and Perimedes bound me with still stronger bonds, till we had got out of hearing of the Sirens' voices. "My friends," said I, "this is not the first time that we have been in danger, and we are in nothing like so bad a case as when the Cyclops shut us up in his cave. Even so, my courage and wise counsel saved us then, and we shall live to look back on all this as well. Now, so, let us all do as I say, trust in Zeus, and row on with might and main. As for you, coxswain, these are your orders. Attend to them, for the ship is in your hands." Then we entered the straits in great fear of mind, for on the one hand was Scylla, and on the other dread Charybdis kept sucking up the salt water. As she vomited it up, it was like the water in a cauldron when it is boiling over upon a great fire, and the spray reached the top of the rocks on either side. When she began to suck again, we could see the water all inside whirling round and round, and it made a deafening sound as it broke against the rocks. We could see the bottom of the whirlpool, all black with sand and mud, and the men were at their wits' ends for fear. As a fisherman, seated, spear in hand, upon some jutting rock throws bait into the water to deceive the poor little fishes, and spears them with the ox's horn with which his spear is shod, throwing them gasping on to the land as he catches them one by one. Even so did Scylla land these panting creatures on her rock, and munch them up at the mouth of her den, while they screamed and stretched out their hands to me in their mortal agony. This was the most sickening sight that I saw throughout all my voyages. So being much troubled, I said to the men, "My men, I know you are hard-pressed, but listen while I tell you the prophecy that Tiresias made me, and how carefully Aegean Circe warned me to shun the island of the blessed sun god, for it was here, she said, that our worst danger would lie. Turn the ship away from the island." The men were in despair at this, and Eurylochus at once gave me an arrogant answer. "Odysseus," said he, "you are cruel. You are very strong yourself, and never get worn out." I saw that the sky meant us a mischief, and said, "You force me to yield, for you are many against one. But at any rate, each one of you must take his solemn oath that if he meet with a herd of cattle, or a large flock of sheep, he will not be so mad as to kill a single head of either, but will be satisfied with the food that Circe has given us." They all swore as I told them, and when they had completed their oath, we made the ship fast in a harbour that was near a stream of fresh water, and the men went ashore and cooked their suppers. When the child of morning, rosy-fingered dawn, appeared, we brought the ship to land, and drew her into a cave, wherein the sea-nymphs hold their courts and dances, and I called the men together in council. "My friends," said I, "we have food and drink in the ship. Let us mind so, and not touch the cattle, or we shall suffer for it. For these cattle and sheep belong to the mighty sun, who sees and gives ear to everything." and again they promised that they would obey. For a whole month the wind blew steadily from the south, and there was no other wind, but only south and east. Meanwhile, Eurylochus had been giving evil counsel to the men. "Listen to me," said he, "my poor comrades. All deaths are bad enough, but there is none so bad as famine. Why should not we drive in the best of these cows and offer them in sacrifice to the immortal gods? If we ever get back to Ithaca, we can build a fine temple to the sun god and enrich it with every kind of ornament." When they had done praying, they killed the cows and dressed their carcasses. They cut out the thigh bones, wrapped them round in 2 layers of fat, and set some pieces of raw food on top of them. They had no wine with which to make drink offerings over the sacrifice while it was cooking, so they kept pouring on a little water from time to time, while the inward meats were being grilled. Then, when the thigh bones were burned, and they had tasted the inward meats, they cut the rest up small, and put the pieces upon the spits. By this time my deep sleep had left me, and I turned back to the ship and to the seashore. If they do not square accounts with me about my cows, I will go down to Hades and shine there among the dead. Sun, said Zeus, go on shining upon us gods and upon mankind over the fruitful earth. I will shiver their ship into little pieces with a bolt of white lightning as soon as they get out to sea. I was told all this by Calypso, who said she had heard it from the mouth of Hermes. As soon as I got down to my ship and to the seashore, I rebuked each one of the men separately, but we could see no way out of it, for the cows were dead already. For 6 days my men kept driving in the best cows and feasting upon them. But when Zeus, the son of Cronos, had added a 7th day, the fury of the gale abated. We so went on board, raised our masts, spread sail, and put out to sea. As soon as we were well away from the island, and could see nothing but sky and sea, the son of Cronos raised a black cloud over our ship, and the sea grew dark beneath it. The men all fell into the sea. They were carried about in the water round the ship, looking like so many seagulls, but the gods soon deprived them of all chance of getting home again. I stuck to the ship till the sea knocked her sides from her keel, which drifted about by itself, and struck the mast out of her in the direction of the keel. But there was a backstay of stout ox thong still hanging about it, and with this I lashed the mast and keel together, and getting astride of them was carried wherever the winds chose to take me. I could not plant my feet anywhere so as to stand securely, for the roots were a long way off, and the boughs that overshadowed the whole pool were too high, too vast, and too far apart for me to reach them. So I hung patiently on, waiting till the pool should discharge my mast and raft again, and a very long while it seemed. A juryman is not more glad to get home to supper, after having been long detained in court by troublesome cases, than I was to see my raft beginning to work its way out of the whirlpool again.